Hey folks, y'all see the title. Now, here's the thing. I'd done a video on this here, and I had took while I was editing it and everything, I took it down because I had found a conflict, and y'all know me, I like to be thorough. I'd found a conflict, so I put it on private. Well, I go back to use that same source to get an update, because a lot of time it'll do update and it'll show a date and time at the bottom they done the update, and it's gone. And this wasn't from no fringe outlet either. It was from something like that has Daily and UK and Mail in their name. You know, but you got to scrabble them around, shuffle the words around to get it straight. So I'm like, let me go ahead and sit on this. Well, it has changed. And our guy, Mr. Carlson, speaks on it, and he's speaking more in the way that my brain was working, because I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, this don't make no sense. I mean, because I would be the main person losing if I done this to me. And if I was on the other side, I would consider it as a tactic if I wanted to go scorched earth, because the main person that's going to suffer from it is my adversary. Now, am I going to suffer a little bit? Yeah. But I got NATO on my side. The N to the A to the T to the O on my side, sorta. Even though I know they're just using me, but I gotta be of use. Look, one thing people say, they're just using you. You have to be of use to be used. If you're not of any use, then no one's going to want to use you for anything, because you have no use. Aha! Aha! Because being used, it goes a long way. You have to be useful to be used. Anyway, let's go ahead and go. Let's get Mr. Carlson going here, and so we can get this in. Now, you know, I got to break in and out a couple of times, you know. But anyway, this is from Tucker on Twitter, okay? Now, I don't have Twitter, but I got the video anyway. So let's go ahead and go.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. This morning, it looks like somebody blew up the Kakhovka Dam in southern Ukraine. The rushing wall of water wiped out entire villages, destroyed a critical hydropower plant, and as of tonight, puts the largest nuclear reactor in Europe in danger of melting down. So if this was intentional, it was not a military tactic, it was an act of terrorism. The question is, who did it? Well, let's see. The Kakhovka Dam was effectively Russian. It was built by the Russian government. It currently sits in Russian-controlled territory. The dam's reservoir supplies water to Crimea, which has been, for the last 240 years, home of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Blowing up the dam may be bad for Ukraine, but it hurts Russia more. And for precisely that reason, the Ukrainian government has considered destroying it. In December, the Washington Post quoted a Ukrainian general saying his men had fired American-made rockets at the dam's floodgate.
And that's what I said. That's exactly what I said. I mean, because when I look at the impact, which way the water flows from, to which side is on the flood side, but which side is on the depression side. Because, I mean, your natural instinct is to look and see what's going to get flooded. That's natural instinct. Hell, even I suffer from that. I got to turn off my instinct. But then I'm like, wait a minute. So when they do that, then the water needed to cool this nuclear power plant, I think it's like the first or second largest nuclear power plant in Europe. You know what I mean? Like, but whose side is it on? It's on the Russian side. So who's going to suffer the most? The Russians will. The cleanup, the fallout, the death, the unusable land. Come on. I mean, they already know how that's going remember with the old Chernobyl plant and, the red forest, which has been burnt down, and that was used tactically, and they set that on fire again before the war started, but that was a tactical move. I would have done the same thing. Anyway, there's my break in. Let's go.
Test strike. So really, once the facts start coming in, it becomes much less of a mystery what might have happened to the dam. Any fair person would conclude that the Ukrainians probably blew it up, just as you would assume they blew up Nord Stream, the Russian natural gas pipeline, last fall. And in fact, the Ukrainians did do that, as we now know. It's not like Vladimir Putin is anxious to wage war on himself. Oh, but that's where you're wrong, Mr. and Mrs. Cable News consumer. Vladimir Putin is exactly that sort of man, the sort of man who'd shoot himself to death in order to annoy you. We know this from the American media, which wasted no time this morning in accusing the Russians of sabotaging their own infrastructure. Bill Kristol, the man who once told us that Saddam Hussein was responsible for 9/11, immediately denounced Putin as a war criminal and even more savagely compared him to Donald Trump. The rest of the pundit class made similar, clearly coordinated noises. Putin did it! Putin did it! And their reasoning was simple. Putin is evil, and evil people do evil things purely for the dark joy of being evil. In this specific case, Putin attacked himself, which is the most evil thing you can do, and therefore perfectly in character for a man that evil. That was their explanation. No one who's paid to cover these things seemed to entertain even the possibility it could have been the Ukrainians who did it. No chance of that. Ukraine, as you may have heard, is led by a man called Zelensky. And we can say for a dead certain fact that he was not involved. He couldn't have been. Zelensky is too decent for terrorism. Now, you see him on television, and it's true you might form a different impression. Sweaty and rat-like, a comedian turned...
Yeah, and he's about ready to say it, a comedian. He's a comedian, a freaking comedian. And anybody think, well, Zelensky wouldn't do that. What do you mean? Well, he wouldn't do anything like that. What? Have you lost your mind? Have you lost your, do you know, you'd be surprised how many people haven't done any real research about this man. I have. Now, I already knew who Putin was. I knew who Putin was when he was a KGB officer. My knowledge of him predates the internet. I keep telling y'all, some of this stuff is new to some people. To some of us that were in certain vocations, some of these people aren't new. Putin is one of them. He's not new to me. But anyway, let's go ahead and go.
Oligarch, a persecutor of Christians, a friend of BlackRock. But don't believe your own eyes. Actually, Mr. Zelensky is a very good man. The best, really. As George W. Bush once noted, he is our generation's Winston Churchill. Of all the people in the world are...
And that's one of the last damn people that wait a minute, what? That's one of the last people who I want to listen, that me personally want to listen to on grading people.
Our shifty, dead-eyed Ukrainian friend in the tracksuit is uniquely incapable of blowing up a dam. He's literally a living saint, a man in whom there is no sin. That's why Lindsey Graham is so attracted to him. They're just two good people, hanging out together and being good. And like all good people, when they meet in person, they spend a lot of time talking about killing people and laughing like friends do. Here's the pair last week.
Free or die.
Free or die.
Now you're free.
Yes.
And we will be.
And the Russians are dying.
It's the best money we've ever spent.
Thank you so much.
No, it's...
The Russians are...
Yeah, but it's not his money. Lindsey Grahamnesty. Now, if y'all remember, I put this picture up of the same Lindsey Graham, and you ought to recognize the other people, this other John McCain in this picture with the Azov soldiers from the Azov battalion. You get an idea how old the picture is. and how long the United States been swapping skin with the Ukraine. They're over there. This picture was taken over there. Nick, where'd you get this picture? Don't matter. It's a real picture. Don't matter where I got it. That matters none.
Dying. It's the best money we've ever spent, Graham says. A smile spreads across his thin, quivering lips as he forms the words. He looks like a starving man contemplating a breakfast buffet. The aroma of death has aroused Lindsey Graham. Thanks so much, replies Zelensky. He feels the same way. See, there's nothing dark here. Just two middle-aged guys celebrating the killing of a population. They don't seem like the kind of people who'd enjoy flooding villages or starting a famine. And in any case, who cares if they are? It's really not your business. Your job is to support Ukraine. Watch Nikki Haley, a Republican candidate for president, explain this principle on CNN.
A win for Ukraine is a win for all of us. And for them to sit there and say that this is a territorial dispute, that's just not the case. To say that we should stay neutral, it is in the best interest of America. It's in the best interest of our national security for Ukraine to win. We have to see.
And I call BS on that. I call BS on it when the first time I heard her say it. I am not a supporter of Nikki Haley. I give a vote of no confidence of Nikki Haley. Anybody else like her? Hey, that's cool. Y'all know how I am. Do what you do. I'm good with that. I'm never tell nobody who I think you should or shouldn't support. I have a vote of zero confidence for Nikki Haley. That is just me speaking.
See this through, we have to finish it.
See? It's very easy to understand. It is vitally important for you to support Ukraine because it's necessary for Ukraine to be supported by you. Your support is mandatory until it's finished, whatever it is, and whatever that means. So shut up and support Ukraine, or else you're in trouble. Back when they still taught logic, statements like this were known as tautologies. Something is true because it is. The more you repeat it, the truer it becomes. It's a self-reinforcing reality. There was a time when tautologies were considered illegitimate arguments, not to mention hilariously stupid. Only dumb people talk like that. Now everybody in power talks like that. Diversity is our strength. Trans women are women. Zelensky is Churchill. It's all self-evidently true. Doesn't need an explanation, and don't ask questions. Sound familiar? Of course it does. That's the pap they're serving us day after day in steaming, lumpy portions. By this point, it's possible that American citizens are the least informed people in the world. Your average yak herder in Tajikistan knows who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. It's obvious. Does he think some skinny dude in a dress is actually a girl? Come on. That idea would never occur to him. You've got to be lied to at full volume over a period of years in order to reach conclusions like that. And of course, we have been. The media lie. They do. But mostly they just ignore.
Well, technically it's delusions, but they like to label it as grandeur. Grandeur, Mr. Carlson. Get it right.
To him. You've got to be lied to at full volume over a period of years in order to reach conclusions like that. And of course, we have been. The media lie. They do. But mostly they just ignore the stories that matter. What's happened to the hundreds of billions of US dollars we've sent to Ukraine? No clue. Who organized those BLM riots 3 years ago? No one's gotten to the bottom of that. What exactly happened on 9/11? Well, it's still classified.
I know.
How did Jeffrey Epstein make all that money? How did he die? How about JFK? And so endlessly on. Not only are the media not interested in any of this, they are actively hostile to anybody who is. In journalism, curiosity is the gravest crime. Yesterday, for example, a former Air Force officer who worked for years in military intelligence came forward as a whistleblower to reveal that the U.S. government has physical evidence of crashed non-human-made aircraft, as well as the bodies of the pilots who flew those aircraft. The Pentagon has spent decades studying these otherworldly remains in order to build more technologically advanced weapons systems. Okay, that's what the former intel officer revealed, and it was clear he was...
That's called reverse engineering. And in full disclosure, I would do the exact same thing. Ain't no need of me lying. If I had the ability to, and I had the people around me, I had the support of the government, and I had the brains around me to reverse engineer such, I'd do the exact same thing. Onward.
Telling the truth. In other words, UFOs are actually real, and apparently so is extraterrestrial life. Now we know. In a normal country, this news would qualify as a bombshell, the story of the millennium. But in our country, it doesn't. The whistleblower's account ran on a technology website called The Debrief, which you've probably never heard of. The Washington Post had that
I've heard of it. I've heard of it.
story, but decided not to run it. The New York Times, meanwhile, just pretended it never happened. On the front page of the New York Times website this morning, there were 5 stories about Ukraine, as well as 4 stories apiece about Donald Trump, trans people, and climate change, the usual lineup. There was nothing at all about how an alien species is flying hypersonic aircraft over our cities. Not one word. So if you're wondering why our country seems so dysfunctional, this is a big part of the reason. Nobody knows what's happening. A small group of people control access to all relevant information, and the rest of us don't know. We're allowed to yap all we want about racism, but go ahead and talk about something that really matters and see what happens. If you keep it up, they'll make you be quiet. Trust us. That's how they maintain control. When Western tourists first started traveling in large numbers to the Soviet Union in the early 1970s, they found that many Russians had a completely warped understanding of the United States. They thought that Americans lived in grinding poverty, in a state of perpetual race war, and were desperate to flee to the freedom and prosperity of the Eastern Bloc. They thought this because that's what they had been told. They had no way to know otherwise. The few Russians who understood what was really going on in the rest of the world had learned about it from listening to shortwave radio broadcasts, sometimes under the covers so the neighbors wouldn't hear. 50 years later, it is bewildering to consider the ironies here. We're the ones who live in ignorance now. The US government has managed to classify more than 1 billion so-called public documents. So at this point, we can't possibly know what our leaders are doing. We're not allowed to know. By definition, that is not a democracy. Yet it's fine with the media. Secrecy is a powerful tool of control. Stop asking how we got so rich. Here's another story about racism. Go eat each other. That's the program. That's how most of us now live here in the United States. Manipulated by lies, silenced by taboos. It is unhealthy and it's dehumanizing, and we're tired of it. As of today, we've come to Twitter, which we hope will be the shortwave radio under the blankets. We're told there are no gatekeepers here. If that turns out to be false, we'll leave. But in the meantime, we are grateful to be here. We'll be back with much more very soon.
And folks, I've changed my mind. How I'd said that I was not going to reactivate my Twitter account. That's ever since Elon took over. I got a message, saying, this, that, and other, and they'd reviewed why I was kicked off, and it was bacon sandwich, and that click this link here to reinstate your account, or click this link here to start a new account. I done neither. I said, nah, I ain't got time in my life for this. I've had a change of heart. Now, I don't see myself tweeting, because, see, this happened all before Tucker decided to go to Twitter. He was still at Fox, the sly Fox, but Fox nonetheless, when I made that statement. So now that Tucker is there, even if I'm just there to observe and not, because, I am a fan of the observers. Hell, y'all know me. Me and Massive Dynamic has a love-hate relationship, but more like they hate me. They love to hate me. So I guess that's the love and hate. Oh boy. but I'm going to probably this weekend. I don't know. I'll probably just reactivate the old account. I didn't delete I did delete that email. So I guess I'll have to go to Twitter and see what, and if it's saying, now we don't know, then I'll just start another one. And because I really didn't have much of anything on there, because I used it pretty much for observation. I rarely tweeted anything. I'd forward tweets, but I rarely created tweets. But anyway, talk to yous guys later. Tell me what you think. Let me know what you think. Time for me to get the editing some videos. Y'all be good and be safe. Bye.